Hello to all my viewers, this is Magicalamazing, and this is the final part to my PPSH 41 tutorial. This video goes over how I made the bolt, the sights, and the trigger assembly, so let's get to it. To start work on the bolt, I cut out a shape that looks like this. It's going to be folded up into this square shape, and here is where it's going to fit. It's actually backwards the way I'm holding it now, but the idea is the same as to the fit. It should be large enough and long enough to cover the ejection port and easily slide within the inside of the barrel shroud cover. If you got all the relative measurements correctly and everything was fitting together, it should also fit fairly snugly within the stock assembly of the gun. Also be sure that it does go forward enough to cover the magazine well. When you fit the two pieces together, the bolt should still slide between them. Then I cut a notch in the bolt right where the channel for the charging handle starts. This is an inside view of the bolt. You can see that I've reinforced that channel with a couple pieces of cardboard. This is going to be for extra support when I attach the piece that will become the charging handle. And that piece that will be the charging handle are two pieces of very tightly wound paper glued together side by side. They attach to the inside of the bolt like this. I used a lot of glue and reinforcement just to be safe. With the two main pieces of the gun together, the charging handle should stick out about that far. Now I insert the magazine to see if the mag release mechanism will affect the bolt mechanism and vice versa. I also want to make sure that the bolt isn't getting hung up on anything and that it isn't too terribly difficult to push or pull. So here you can see the inside of the barrel shroud with the bolt inserted. This next thing I had to do just because I wanted to feel safe, but I'm going to add a little guide rail into the inside of the barrel shroud cover just to help the bolt stay in place. It's going to be attached right there, which is going to still allow the bolt to be pulled back and forth, but it's going to keep it against the inside. So the distance between the rear of that rail there and the front of that piece of reinforcement back there needs to be wide enough to allow the bolt to go in for disassembly if you want to take the bolt out. But the bolt should still slide pretty freely underneath that rail. Next I decorated the bolt handle to make it truer to the real gun, and this is what it looks like. The rear sight started with a shape that looks like this. After folding the halves up in their right angles, this is the piece I got. The actual rear sight is just a small square notch cut into a sheet of cardboard. After covering the corrugation and attaching the piece in the middle, this is the rear sight. And here's a different view of it from the back. The front sight post rests on a piece that looks like this, which is going to be just long enough to fit in that area that we don't have a hole in the barrel shroud. The front sight itself is just a small blade that's going to be attached right in the center there. After the two pieces are put together, this is what they look like glued onto the gun. The front sight cover is a piece cut out into this funky looking shape. When attached, the shape is attached on either side of that wedge and bent over the post. The trigger guard pretty simply consists of a piece of cardboard bent into this shape. I also covered the corrugations on the sides. Nothing fancy here, it's just going to be glued onto the bottom of the stock right about there. The base of the fire selector is just a rectangle of cardboard like this, 2 layers thick, with the corrugation covered on both sides. I glued a small rectangle on top of the one we already made and cut out a shape that looks like this. This is going to be the piece of the fire selector that you would actually move, though in my gun it does not. Notice I attach it perpendicular to the length of the rectangle. Next, I glued it underneath the trigger guard. It is toward the front end of the gun underneath there, leaving room for the trigger itself. On that topic, this is the shape that I cut out that is going to become the trigger. I then attached that underneath the gun as well, and it's just about halfway between the trigger guard and the fire selector. And that's your last step. So, for reference, this was the gun I was attempting to use, and the picture that I was using as reference. This is what I came up with. Thank you all for watching. I hope this helped you. This is Magicalamazing, signing off till next time. See y'all later.